Hey there. If you're watching this, uh, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything other than you clicked on the video, but this is the video for if Donald Trump wins the 2020 election. Uh, Damn, sucks, but here we are. I'm making this right now on the 2nd of November, so the proper election day hasn't even begun, but I wanted to talk very briefly about where we are and where we're moving from this point forward. If we're here, if Donald Trump has won, I imagine that it has been after a protracted series of legal battles, ones involving voter manipulation, voter intimidation, the destruction of votes, some fuckery, some Republican state official slippery business, and really just everything possible wrong happened. Or maybe Trump won in a fucking landslide. I genuinely don't know because it is November 2nd. But here are some things that I want to focus on. First of all, this should be treated as what it is, an absolute and unambiguous loss for us. As I've said many times before, socialists function best when they're fighting against bourgeois electoralism, not when they're fighting against fascism. There's a very real possibility that many of the people who are watching right now, especially my audience, because of the demographics who tend to enjoy my content, are going to have a very rough time of it. This means that even if you don't live in the United States, we are going to see a severe um, departure from the direction we want the world to go in, and quite a bit faster than we had hoped to. I can only begin to imagine the harm a second term Trump presidency could do to this country and to the world. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, there's a very real possibility that direct action is going to be made much more difficult in the immediate future. The reason for this is because right now, following or immediately prior to the election, there has been an increasing uh, propensity for rampant Trump supporters to, in their caravans, run down people who are visibly left leaning, who have BLM stickers, who are Biden supporters. And you know they're going to go twice as hard against Antifa folk. Violence has only been rising. Violence and hate crimes rose after Trump's election. They will rise again now. They will rise to unimaginable extents. And it's very possible that if you go out there and engage in direct action, if you protest, if you are a member of the seditious terrorist group known as Antifa, that your lives or your well-beings will be threatened. That it will be harder and harder for you to do what you want to do, in part because of stochastic terroristic violence, and in part because laws will be made to make it harder for you to do what you want to do. Whether those come in the form of direct arrests for people associated with these groups, whether it comes in the form of disincentivizations, such as the loss of certain benefits or legal protections, whether that comes from groups that you are a part of being deemed terrorist organizations, or police being given essentially permission to engage in increasingly violent action against you and your comrades, things are going to become a lot harder. Where do we move from this point forward? Well, the first and absolute most important thing that we need to do is recognize our power structures. Where do they lie? Do they lie in the federal government? No, of course not. In all likelihood, the House will still be Democrat. I can't imagine the House goes Republican, but they aren't very useful unless we also have the Senate. And if we lost the presidency, we probably lost the Senate as well. So not much help to be found there. Do we have unions to look back on? No, probably not. Unions are very weak in this country, and they have only grown weaker since 2016. That will continue to happen. And moving forward is indeed going to be very difficult for us without a larger power structure to take advantage of. The best thing that we can reasonably expect to do is to congregate within blue states and to protect ourselves and one another by living in communities where at least locally there is resistance against the second Trump administration. That is the best that we can reasonably hope for with regards to maximizing our longevity and our happiness long term. If you are a very left-leaning person in a very Trump-supporting district, I would not want to be you in a second Trump presidency. It's only going to get harder. If you have the capacity to give birth, it is in all likelihood the case that your abortion rights will be taken away soon. Your children will be subject to an educational criteria set down by Trump's recent executive order, the 1776 Project, encouraging you to vote patriotically. Our world will only grow hotter and more tumultuous with regards to climate change. There really is no path forward that is brighter than there is in the world we live today. Um, and that's all I have to say. I think a lot of people genuinely underestimate the degree to which Trump is capable of interfering with our political advancements. I really think people underestimate this. People think the presidency is just sort of a neutral operative of American imperialism and capitalism, and that no matter who's in charge, the same basic machine steers forward. But that's just not the case. You may think I'm coming off unnecessarily pessimistic here, and there's a possibility that that is the case. But listen, I'm still going to be here. I will keep you updated on what I think the best possible avenues for the future are. If there is any benefit to be seen, it is that abject misery is sometimes a good radicalizer. More and more people in this country are going to die of COVID 19. More of you are going to die of poisoned rivers. More of you are going to die of heat stroke or choking death on forest fire smoke. And as more of you die from whatever, demographics, which were previously unconcerned with the direction this country takes, are going to be more likely to move to the left, potentially, if they're served properly. We have to remember that right now, more left-leaning people have been mobilized than they did back during Hillary Clinton's term. We know right now that the Trump presidency has been, if nothing else, effective in getting liberals to get up and actually participate in the voting process. And you may think this is desperately liberal of me, but I maintain this. The only thing that we can do if Trump wins, which he has in this timeline that I'm referring to right now, is to maximize the hatred and contempt that the population of this country and of other countries feel towards the presidency. I strongly encourage you to buy firearms. I strongly encourage you to take care of yourselves and your family. And I strongly encourage you to, if you have the resources to do so, find places to live where you can be accommodated best. And I'll keep you all updated from there. See, fighting as a socialist has never been easy in this country. In fact, it has often been quite dangerous to one's health. Though it is safer today than it was 100 years ago, I'll say that much. But unfortunately, we are about to ride out perhaps one of the most difficult times in the past century for leftist advocacy. And unfortunately, unlike those previous times, there may not be an electoral out that we are looking for. Because even in those previous instances, the gentlemen's agreements that preserve bourgeois democracy were left more or less intact. This time, it is very possible they will not be left intact. There will not be a 2024 election, or if there is, it'll be a sham election, more so than your average American election. But remember, and I'll end this, I think, with a message of something that's at least in the ballpark of being hopeful, that America is not the world. America is 5% of the world, actually, 5% of the population. There are other countries that have experienced great downturns and then revivals. Just recently, we saw the people in the country of Chile build themselves a new constitution. After we went in there and we established what was essentially a fascist dictatorship, they were able to overthrow their regime. They were able to, languish under neoliberalism, but they were able to move out from underneath the foot of absolute totalitarian anti-communist governance. And do you know why that is? It is because fascism is a death cult. Fascism cannot survive. Do you see in Trump a man capable of keeping this dying empire from collapsing? No, absolutely not. Fascists are destined to fail. They are constitutionally incapable of rationally assessing threats to their governance, to their people. They are not capable of it. To a fascist, if it is politically expedient, 2 + 2 must necessarily equal 5. But it cannot in matters of pharmaceutical or military importance. It cannot in matters of sociological or economic organization. Reality clashes with fascism. So even if we go through a dark period, even if we go through a miserable 4 years, that's okay. Well, no, it's not okay. But that's not the end of the world. Because the human spirit is tenacious, because the progression of human society has been one generally towards improvement, with some exceptions, generally, very generally, and because our masters are bad at running their governments. So something will happen eventually. And until then, it is just a matter of doing what you can with the resources you have. So, good luck.